let's go ahead and get into the Pittsburgh Steelers offseason recap. But before we do, if you guys haven't already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and smash that bell so you can get notified when Tyler and I create new content. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers before the NFL season. So if you could help us reach that goal, that would be very much appreciated on our end. All right, Tyler. Steelers kind of surprised everybody last year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Showed up. Mike Tomlin had, 10 years in a row of being above 500?
No, 15.
Oh, 15?
It was 15, yeah.
Yeah. So everybody thought that was going away, right? Rookie quarterback most likely to start. If not, it's Mitch Trubisky, which we all saw how that worked out in Chicago. So the Steelers really surprised me, being able to be in playoff contention in the season above 500. And I'm pretty excited to see what they have going forward, because if you look at their offensive side of the ball, it's really come a long way in a short amount of time. And defensively, when TJ Watt's on the field, they are about as elite as you can get. So what have you seen so far from the Steelers offseason that you've really liked?
So I agree with you completely when it comes to this offense. It reminds me actually a lot of kind of the Browns. But when it comes to this offseason, they have I had all my notes up here. So they've kind of had a little bit more of a lower key offseason. But one of the things that they've done is they've really addressed the offensive line, signing Nate Herberg, signing Issac Seumalo as well. Interior guards. That's one of the things where I think that they actually really needed to improve on, was on the offensive line, because on the skill position players, they have that. Kenny Pickett looks like that's a hit. Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth from a couple drafts ago are doing really well. Actually, I would say almost Najee Harris is probably an underrated running back just because of how awful this offensive line has been. Yeah. George Pickens looks like a future superstar in this league, and Deontay Johnson is doing well also. But he struggled in the first half of the season because Mitch Trubisky was throwing the ball to him. So this offense is starting to come along, and addressing this offensive line, to me, I think was one of the big things that they needed to do as well. They also, in typical Steelers fashion, though, have really done, I think, a good job on re-signing key players like Larry Ogunjobi, and then also bringing on talented players in the linebacking core to help out with some of that depth. Because I think that might have been, if there was a weakness, I think, of this defense, I would say it was there. Also, maybe they could do a little bit more in the secondary also. But getting Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts as well. And as I mentioned, the secondary also, they did also bring in veteran Patrick Peterson as well to a 2-year contract. Yeah. So that is probably going to be a huge help for some of the rookies or younger cornerback talent to come in. And I think he still has enough juice in the tank here to maybe help take the Steelers on a deep playoff run.
Yeah. And so I like that Pat Peterson signing, but I'll talk a little bit more about why I like it so much when we get to our draft segment of this episode. So let's start out with the Pittsburgh Steelers losses. And the one that I see that jumps off is Cameron Sutton, the loss of the cornerback to the Lions. And he played a pretty big role for them last year, played almost 90% of their snaps. He's in the prime of his career at 28, and he went and signed with the Detroit Lions and kind of left the Steelers, I don't want to say hanging, but they had a really good secondary last year, and he dipped. So that is something I think that they'll have to address. And then, honestly, not too many other big losses. Robert Spillane and Devin Bush left as well. Devin Bush is a little bit bigger of a loss, but
but that's what. So as I was saying though, with like the line, then they brought on, like they've already made several free agency signings in the linebacking core. It seemed like that was. I think they'll address secondary for sure in the draft, but linebacking core that seemed like that was an area for improvement. And I think a lot of that probably gets because people talk about how great the front seven is with the Steelers, but a lot of it is because TJ Watt carries so much attention, and he's so freaking good. He had 5.5 sacks last year, but that was. I say that though as their entire defensive line, I think actually did great. Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, and then also Alex Highsmith. So it's just an entire good front four that I think it maybe you don't realize maybe the linebacking core might be a little bit weaker, and so I think it could be something that they address.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then to kind of round it out, they lost safety Terrell Edmonds, right tackle Trenton Scott, and then some really small losses. They lost Steven Sims, Malik Reed, And then actually that looks like it's about it. So all in all, losses aren't too bad. Cam Sutton is the big glaring loss. But again, like you said, they brought in Pat Peterson, and this is a really deep corner class that I think that they'll be able to tap into.
Well, and so I think that's a good segue into kind of what I think they can do with the draft is that first pick where they're picking they could absolutely address the offensive line as well. But I think Peterson is a Band-Aid on like the loss in cornerback value. Yeah. But as you mentioned, I don't think Devin Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez will be there. However, but then you still have Joey Porter Jr., Deontay Banks is still there. I know Keely Ringo has fallen in a lot of boards, but maybe he can be there for their pick at 32, or the still even Emmanuel Forbes at their pick at 32, Tyreek Stevenson as well. Or they could also go linebacker at 32 because I think we even mocked them taking Jack Campbell. So, but there's on those two, as I've mentioned, my entire theme essentially of this has been linebacker and secondary. It's and adding talent and depth there. There's players that they can absolutely go address with those first two picks within the 2023 NFL draft.
Yeah. Another player that I would actually really like for them would be Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle from Tennessee. He's a little bit of a bigger guy, 6'5", 330, but his game against Will Anderson was nearly flawless.
Yeah.
And then I think you look at what he can do on running plays, and I think you pair him next to Issac Seumalo on that or not Issac Seumalo, Nate Herbig on that right side, and they would just be blowing guys off the ball.
Yeah.
And I really like that idea, and I think he would be available around 17. So I like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I like that one. The last one I will say, getting a guy that can come in and help this defensive front, even in a more rotational way, like Lucas Van Ness, the edge from Iowa. I really like that as well, because even if he's going to be a rotational player for the first year or two of his career, when TJ Watt got hurt, this defense had nothing to replace him. And I think you bring in a guy like Lucas Van Ness, and I think he could hold his own while TJ Watt gets healthy, and you're not just scrambling.
Well, I say that, and their biggest thing though this past year was their offense, because I will say, and the only thing just to combat that, I'm looking at these stats. Cam Hayward had 10.5 sacks. Alex Highsmith had 14.5 sacks. So that there is 25 sacks. If you had TJ Watt there, there's more sacks. He had 5.5 on the year.
Yeah.
Is it a huge effect? Yes. But
if you look at their record when he was out versus when he played, I think they were like 2-6.
Well, true. But also during that time, though, I mean, how many games did Mitch Trubisky play? 5 games, 6 games.
Most. Yeah.
So, and they should not have beat the Bengals week 1, and they did. And I don't think they won a game. Yeah. I don't think they won a game with Mitch Trubisky again until they went over to Kenny Pickett. So not taking away your point that TJ Watt not having him on the field is huge, but that's what I think. That defensive line is so good, and last year the secondary was good with Cam Sutton and then also Minkah Fitzpatrick. That if he stays healthy, absolutely. But addressing that offense, the line as you mentioned, and then also I think addressing the linebackers and secondary as well, getting more depth and youth there is going to help out.
So I totally agree with that. I was just saying a guy that I think that would fit well if they don't want to go the other route would be Lucas Van Ness.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I understand that.
And I think it would make sense because TJ Watt got hurt last year. Then that pass rush really struggled for about 6 games. And then he came back, and then that defense was all world again. Yeah. So
if he's sitting there at 32, I could see that. At 17, just looking at the team and the needs that they have, I would Darnell Wright, I don't know if he'll make it to 32. So I would almost maybe stretch a little bit on him, address the tackle position. Because right now, you're just at the tackle positions. You have Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, and then Chuka Okafor at right tackle. And then there's only one other person on their depth chart that is a tackle.
Yeah.
Right now. So you have Isaac Seumalo right now at left guard starting, Mason Cole at center, and then right guard is James Daniels. This is also according to Our Lads right now. Does not OurLads.com, Pittsburgh Steelers depth chart. So I would see if Lucas Van Ness is there, add more depth interior with a 32nd pick. But I think the 17th pick is either has to be the offensive tackle that you like, or if you like corner. If Joey Porter Jr. is there, or if Deontay Banks is there.
Yeah, no, definitely. So all in all, I think they're in a good spot. There's going to be players that can help them win next year at 17 and 32. And shoot, even what would that be? 48, I think is their next one. 49.
I'm going to double check
because they have two second rounders. So, anyways. Let's go ahead and wrap up the Pittsburgh Steelers there. I think they're set up really well to be a very competitive team in 2023, and I'm looking forward to see what they do in this draft to strengthen this roster. So.